Hi, and welcome to the Jconnect Marriage Preparation course. I'm Rabbi Phil Kaplan, Associate Rabbi at the Great Synagogue in Sydney.
And I'm Abra Kaplan. In this video, we'll be discussing the Bedeken, the veiling ceremony that precedes the chuppah at a Jewish wedding. In this ceremony, the groom approaches the bride who is unveiled, and he draws her veil over her face so that she's ready for the chuppah.
The first biblical mention of veiling that precedes marriage takes place in Bereshit, in the book of Genesis. It says, "Vatisa Rivka et eineha, vateret Yitzchak vatipol me'al hagamal." And Rebekah raised her eyes and saw Isaac. She inclined well upon the camel. Vatomer el ha'eved, mi ha'ish halazeh ha'holech basadeh likratenu. Vayomer ha'eved hu Adoni, vatikach hatzaif vatitkas. And she said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field toward us?" And the servant said, "He is my master." She then took the veil and covered herself.
There's so many different interpretations of what this moment of veiling comes to symbolize. Veiling can be a symbol of modesty and dignity. It can also signify that something is now set aside for a holy purpose. Rebekah and Isaac are now hekdesh. They are sanctified to each other. And veiling herself means that Rebekah's beauty and her radiance will be sanctified to herself and to her husband only. There is precedence in our tradition for covering that which has a special dignity and items that have a special ritual significance. Certain sacred objects of the temple, for example, were covered. And today we can see this when we cover the challah on Shabbat and when we cover Torah scrolls, for example, with beautiful cloth covers.
The Netziv, Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, a 19th century Eastern European rabbi, offers a really fascinating perspective on the veiling story of Rebekah. He says that the veil represented Rebekah's fierce independence, self-confidence, and individuality. She and Isaac would be bound together as husband and wife, but they would remain individuals. Rebekah understood that her independent judgment would remain important in their relationship and for their family. The events that follow will prove this to be completely accurate. It is her decision-making that leads to her son, Jacob, being the father of the Jewish people. And a final thought on Rebekah and Isaac. It says in the Torah, "Vayikach et Rivka vatahi lo leisha v'yehaveha." And Isaac took Rebekah as a wife and he loved her. This is the first mention of romantic love in the Torah. The symbolism of the veiling that we've mentioned helped build a healthy relationship that merited to be the first love story of the Jewish people. Their marriage was successful for all the reasons connected to Rivka's veiling, because it was built on dignity, respect, equality, modesty, treating each other as sacred, and recognizing inner beauty.
Another instance in the Torah where we see veiling happen at a wedding ceremony, and one explanation for why we do the Bedeken today, is the famous story of Jacob, which can also be found in the book of Genesis. Jacob thought he was marrying Rachel, but in fact he was tricked into marrying her older sister Leah. Rachel and Leah's father Laban had veiled Leah before the ceremony to disguise her identity. So one idea associated with the Bedeken is that by approaching the bride unveiled and putting on her veil by himself, the groom is ensuring that he's marrying the right girl. Hopefully this wouldn't be a problem nowadays, but you can't really be too careful.
Traditionally, a bride and a groom will not see each other for the week leading up to their wedding. And the Bedeken is the first moment of seeing each other on their wedding day. So it becomes a moment of great significance and romance and excitement.
What the Bedeken today has come to signify is this sacred moment of meeting. And it's also a reminder of what's truly important in this marriage. At the moment when the groom first greets his bride on their wedding day, they make this symbolic gesture. Their marriage is not about physical beauty, but it's about inner beauty, and it's about the connection between the couple.
During the Bedeken, the bride sits in her kisei kala, the bride's chair or throne, surrounded by the women in her family, her mother, her sister, her bridesmaids, and the groom is brought in by a crowd of his friends and family, usually accompanied by joyous music and dancing.
So to set the scene, the bride is surrounded by her loved ones and the wedding guests, and she hears the music that means that her chatan, her groom, is coming. It's a very emotional moment. Personally, when I heard that music and I could see the crowd of men in the distance escorting Phil, I teared up because it signified that this is the moment when our wedding actually begins. I'm about to see my future husband for the first time on our wedding day. And I saw him coming with his parents and his friends, and he had a huge smile on his face, and I had a huge smile on my face, and it was a very beautiful moment.
The chatan approaches the bride, Sometimes he leans in and he'll maybe make a little joke or say hi, say I love you, and gathers her veil and brings it over her face. It's a lovely tradition that after this, the parents of the bride and groom will offer words of blessing, and then the groom, accompanied by the men, will be escorted to the chuppah.
Your wedding day is also a very auspicious day for prayer. After the veiling at our wedding, I chose to say the Birkat Kala, the bride's prayer, which is another tradition that many brides undertake on their wedding day. I also said prayers for people who had asked me to think of them and have them in mind and bless them on this day. So before the wedding, I had made a list of Hebrew names of people who needed prayers. And I read that list and had those people in mind on the day after the Bedeken and before the chuppah.
The Bedeken is truly a special part of the wedding ceremony, one of the most romantic, as it really focuses on the connection between the bride and the groom. We hope that you've gotten some insights today on the origins of the Bedeken and how it can be meaningful for you at your wedding.
Thank you so much for joining us.